Good afternoon. I'd like to now call to order the Monday, July 14th, 2008 informational meeting of the Sioux Falls City Council on this rather warm middle of the July day. First order of business will be our City Council staff report. We're going to get some updates from Deborah A. Owen, City Clerk.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Sioux Falls City Council. Just to let you know that Council Member Greg Jamison and I attended the elected officials workshop in Pierre on Friday. It went very well, and was a lot of great information that was shared there. And then also, in addition, if I could, congratulations to Denise Tucker, who has finished her 3-year program for her CMC, Certified Municipal Clerks class. It's held 1 week every year for the last 3 years, and Denise had graduated last Friday. In addition, she also was the president of her class, and so it's the lone South Dakotan going to the Minnesota school. I just thought it was quite an honor that they would elect Denise as president. And also, just so if I could take a moment, apparently we had 2 birthdays last Saturday. So Denise and Justice Amundsen shared, so congratulations to you both for a birthday. Oh, in addition now, if I could, back to business. The Municipal League in August will have a policy meeting for both general government and for tax. For those of you who would like to submit ideas, go ahead and do that directly to Yvonne or through our office. We'll be happy to submit those. I know there's at least one out there that we're looking at doing for Councilmember Litz and Staggers. In addition, just so you know, Alex, our summer intern, has been working on a number of things and has finished up this National Citizen Survey. He kind of took all of the report of the geographic subgroup comparisons in one of those booklets that was given out several months ago, and has broken that down by district for all of you, so you can look at how those questions were answered by your own district, and then, of course, at the city at large. So we'll get those to you this week. They are done, I believe. Oh, in addition, there was some Comtrack comments that were mailed to City Council members. You have a hard copy at your desk for you to respond to, if you would. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that information, Deborah. Next is Mayor Munson. Is there a representative from the Mayor's office present? Seeing none, we'll move forward for our committee reports. First one up is the Audit Committee. And, Councilor Costello, I believe.
No report.
No report. Very good. Next is Fiscal Committee.
No report.
Councilor Costello again with no report. Number 6 is Land Use Committee, of which I am the chair, and I have no report there either. So number 7, I think we've got some information coming from the chair there on the Public Services Committee.
My only report is that our meeting today is canceled. So.
We're going to be out of here before we know it here. So, number 8 on the list is the City Council Open Discussion, and I would like to start that off with a few comments here. Last week we did the first reading on the child care ordinances, and I've received quite a few emails and some interesting phone calls, and I believe tonight that we will probably have some interesting conversation concerning that item. The second item that I wanted to comment on was we were originally scheduled to have a few other things discussed at this meeting, but the only one that is going to be talked about now due to the explanations that you received on your emails, the Airport Overlay District. Now, I attended a meeting with the Home Builders Association a while back last week, and I think there was 2 other councilors present there. And what is happening is there's been some discussion about changing the ordinance, and I believe the Airport Authority, Planning, Home Builders Association, the realtors are all going to get together and try to work out a solution for this ordinance that will work for all and still protect our airport. With us today, I have a special guest, John Schmidt. John had some comments that he wanted to address to the council. So, John, would you please come forward? Yes, please.
John Schmidt, 2909 West Spruce Lake Court here in Sioux Falls. I come before you from various directions, to be perfectly honest. One, as Bob mentioned, is the Home Builders Association. I'm also on the board of directors for Habitat for Humanity, and I also happen to have a wife who's on the Planning Commission, so I'm catching up from more than one side on this. But what it amounts to is this ordinance was originally handed to our maintenance or our construction manager out at Habitat when he went in to get building permits. And in the process, he's like, well, what kind of an easement is this? And they're like, well, here's the ordinance, go write it yourself. Then one thing led to another. He gets back to his office. He asks the executive director. She has no clue what to do, so I get the phone call, being a registered engineer in the state of South Dakota, to see if I can help, and I'm also on the board. I read through the ordinance, and there were several what I call issues with the ordinance that I had problems with. And when I did a little digging, I found out that there are basically four main points. One being that the FAA regulations that are used and described and are actually referenced in the ordinance don't even exist by the exact statute number that's put in there, or whatever it's called, if it isn't a statute. The other one that seemed to raise its ugly head was the issue with what is a vendor when it comes for providing notice. And when we inquired with the city about that, the response was it's a realtor or a homeowner who's putting property up for sale. And that's how the Realtors Association came into issue, because they weren't aware of the ordinance existence, let alone that they were supposed to be doing something with regard to the ordinance. So that brought into play the next comment, which is there's a section in the ordinance that requires that every time a house is shown in that overlay district, that a piece of paper be filed in the courthouse just to show the house. And that the realtors really seem to think what's going on here, because they're, number one, what's a vendor? City's saying it includes realtors. Realtors are saying that it's not them, and the vicious circle starts, so to speak. The last issue, I got to think what it is here, had to do with who, well, it has to do with the definition of a vendor. And I don't know if the comment that we received from the city is that a vendor is a realtor and it's not defined, and we're told that it's not always defined. From my perspective as a taxpayer in the city of Sioux Falls, I understand the need to protect the airport and keep it where it's at. There's no doubt in my mind that I want that airport where it's at, and it should stay where it's at. And I understand kind of the intent behind this ordinance to do that. But I have issues with how it's going about, and the ability to basically place the burden on somebody going in for a building permit and requiring them to file an easement, and then the verbiage in the easement, there's no consideration. And I think there should be consideration in an easement, and if I'm not mistaken, I think legally there needs to be consideration in an easement when you're dealing with real property like this. City attorney might have a little different learned opinion on that, but that's kind of it in a nutshell. So I think we need to work through it, and I honestly think the ordinances or the easements that are out there need to be recalled because they're not valid to begin with, because there's no consideration in them, and the ordinance repealed and start from scratch and do it right. It needs to be done, but it needs to be done right. Happy to answer anybody's questions or.
Very good. Councilor Jameson.
I attended that meeting also. There was a word, I believe, in the easement called other. Wasn't that a point of issue for you?
Correct. The language in the easement is quite harsh. I think we'll get through that in the process that planning staff is trying to set up. But I think the bigger thing at this point is you're going down the wrong road. And as a taxpayer, I think the freight train is going to hit something, and it won't be a pleasant dollar sign for the city council when that freight train hits, if you continue down this path and don't recall the ordinance and the easements.
Councilor Knudsen.
Just regarding the topic as far as consideration, I believe that consideration can also mean other than just a monetary, an amount. I believe that consideration from a legal standpoint, even though I've not practiced any law or studied any law for that matter, it can also be, like for instance, that I believe that it's possible that the fact that a person in that area or any other area would receive a building permit that would be considered consideration, and that consideration is more than just a payout as far as money is what I'm trying to say.
I tend to disagree with you there because there is a monetary value placed on getting that permit. So the landowner is having to go obtain that permit at a fixed price, and they have not been given a discount on it as consideration. So to tie that to a consideration if they were outside that area, the issue wouldn't be there. They're not requiring it from people outside the area. It's only the people inside the area, and the building permits are no different. So to try and attach consideration to that, I think would be a little bit of a stretch of the imagination. And
then the only other thing I'd like to say is I just still am really listening carefully on all of this because, again, the night, ages ago that this was proposed, we didn't have anyone come before us publicly to testify against this, and I have no problem at all improving this ordinance or recalling it totally if that is what we decide to do as a group.
My only comment on that is it was presented to you as a housekeeping measure.
Actually, not when you listen to the transcript. The word housekeeping was never used at either of the meetings.
As basically a housekeeping measure. And in talking to certain city staff, they had issues with the ordinance. And as city staff, if they've got issues and they're not voicing it to you, I think there's something that needs to be said about that too. But that's a totally separate topic, and I'm not going there today. It was a combination between the attorney for the airport board and Jeff Schmidt, I believe. And I honestly don't know if the city attorney's office reviewed it or not for legal purposes.
Dr. Staggers?
Yes. I guess share your concerns about this ordinance that is still in effect. To me, it's very troublesome that if you want to make some improvement on your house, and you happen to live in this area, you're going to have to sign over the easement or you're not going to be able to improve your house.
Correct.
Now, to me, that's not any compensation at all. I mean, you can make an argument that's just, extortion. But having said that, I agree with you that we should revoke this ordinance immediately, if not sooner. And then also at the same time, we should be revoking the easements that have already been filed. And then also I have a question then to ask you. Should we also compensate those property owners who had to pay for those easements?
You mean pay for the filing or
yes.
just give up the easements?
Pay for the filing and the monetary.
That would be a good gesture. At this point, I don't think that's the big picture that we're really after, but it would be a very good gesture because a lot of people viewed that having to pay to file an easement that you had to provide at no cost was adding insult to injury. So trying to mend bridges probably wouldn't be a bad idea.
Please, Bob, your Justice.
Isn't it a fact that this is being reviewed at this time by a committee? I thought I went to a meeting, and they're looking at it, and it was drafted by the attorney for the, independent entity, which is the airport board.
Correct.
And I think the administration of it is being reviewed as far as on the city basis.
Correct.
And so that's really under review right now, isn't it?
The first meeting, from what I understand, is Thursday.
I believe it is.
But there's also been another group that's looked at it that I was with, and because there's a recommendation, I think, from the airport board authority. I'll have to check that, but I know they're looking at it too.
Have you seen the verbiage on the easement?
Have I?
Yeah, you personally.
I don't have it by memory, but I read it.
Did you? The fact that there's no consideration in that verbiage.
Well, consideration can be, I've seen easements said other good and valuable consideration, so you might be right. It might be hard to show any other good and valuable consideration, but consideration just doesn't have to be monetary. Example, if I put a line into your house and you give me an easement for that line so I can go and repair it, that's a consideration type situation.
Correct. My point is the easement doesn't even have the verbiage of $1 and other good and valuable consideration.
Then you're saying it wasn't very good draftsmanship.
That was my opinion also, and I'm not
So
an
I think
attorney.
it will be reviewed, and I think it is, so.
The verbiage is not in there for any consideration whatsoever, not even the $1.
And what you're saying is that the critical point is that I give an easement to
Whoever,
the city,
right?
and then I have to go record it and pay for the recording is another flaw in the ointment, right?
Well, it's a flaw in the ointment. One of the comment that city staff gave us at that meeting was that was to expedite the process whereby somebody coming down for a building permit could then get that permit yet that day if they ran down to the courthouse and filed it myself. And my response to city staff is you could also set them off on a pile, had them notarized properly, set them off on the pile, and once a week or once a month, the city can go down and pay to file them, if that's who's responsible. If it's the airport that's responsible for filing it, because it's their easement, they could go down and file them once a month or once a week or something.
But it's that easement that's the trouble, the one that, the abrogation or whatever they refer to.
The abrogation easement verbiage.
So
And then there are other issues with the ordinance in general. It's very poorly worded, in my opinion.
The rest of the ordinance, other than just that section dealing with the...
A good example was the issue with a vendor having to file in the courthouse a notice every time they show a house. I mean, that's not realistic.
If I could ask a question of Justice Amundson. I'm very concerned about the process here that the city is using to try to get the easement by saying, you know, you're going to have to sign off on this easement or we're not going to let you improve your house. Could you say something about that, the process?
Well, the process is that apparently that the airport authority wanted some sort of a provision in there to protect for whatever reason they had. Now he says that the section that's in there is no longer in effect, which I kind of wonder how it got in there then. But as far as, I guess I'm not familiar with the procedure used, but sometimes, you know, you go in and you have to pay 3% to get license plates too and things like that. There are certain things that you can be done. But you know, the process itself is being reviewed. I don't think it was administered or the plans weren't laid out, and that's why I think it's being reviewed, Council. Is it troubling? Well, you know, it's troubling to someone, so it has to be looked at.
My understanding also from legal counsel through the Home Builders Association is that to tie the requirement of an easement to obtaining a building permit might not be very wise choice either. And I understand that the city.
Depends on how bad you want the building permit, I suppose.
Well, and from home builders' perspective, we had to build 6 houses this year, and they were all in the area. I mean, we had no choice because we were backed up against the wall, and we needed to provide something to our clients. Did we like what we had to sign? No. Did we have any way to negotiate? No. It was already decided by an attorney who you guys never saw it. I mean, you never saw the easement. The verbiage in the easement was not seen by you because it wasn't drafted till this spring when the first one went to the window of Building Services and asked for a permit. And at that point, they just simply gave us the ordinance, and when we questioned where is the easement, then the attorney for the airport board drafted an easement and was given to us without review by the city.
Councilor Costello.
I think at this point, the important things to realize is that, A, it is being reviewed, and it's going to be reviewed by the city attorney, the airport authority, and all those that want to have input. And if that didn't happen before, that's unfortunate, but it is being reviewed now. And I don't know where this conversation, if it was with Councilor Litz at the mayor's meeting or what, but I know that I personally talked to Director Cooper, and he indicated that they are no longer implementing these easements right now while it's being reviewed, and that anybody who was caught sideways on the, with these easements up until now will be made whole or made right with what ultimately comes out.
I don't know if your information is accurate or mine is accurate. But my understanding is they are only requiring it for a new construction of a new house per se. If you want to go in and fix a fence or re-roof your house or put on siding, they have foregone, they're waiving that requirement even though the ordinance requires it. They're waiving that. But if you want a building permit, you got to do an easement yet, the last I heard. And I don't know if that's changed.
Well, John, my intent for having you come down here today was to present some information. I think you've done a pretty good job of that. Give us something to think about as this, wends its way through there. John, I got a question. Are you going to be on the committee representing Home Builders Association as this thing goes up for review and gets tweaked?
Yes, I am.
Very good, very good. Is there anything else for John? Very good. Mr. Schmidt, I'd like to thank you for coming down here today and presenting your side of the story. And I want to assure you that this council has every intention of giving this thing careful review. And we're going to put out a product that will protect the airport as well as homeowners.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, the next thing is staff reports.
Can I ask a question, Bob?
Yeah, Dr. Staggers.
Maybe, I haven't had a chance to take a look at my emails today, but I guess I have the question, where's Mike Cooper?
Mr. Cooper, we looked at the items that were requested. One of them was the TIF overlay district. The other one was, what was the other one? Okay. Oh, the RFP for the development over in Pettigrew Heights, and then the airport overlay district. And Mr. Cooper, the RFP thing is in negotiations at this point. There's something going on, but it's being negotiated, so we're not privileged to talk about it at this point here. The TIF overlay district, they were still working on the information for that, and the airport overlay district we briefly talked about today. And Mr. Cooper is going to be here in the future to address those items.
But I mean, we specifically asked the committee for him to be here today to talk about that, and he's not here. And we also mentioned, too, to some of the home builders, for them to come, for the 4 o'clock meeting today, because we had asked him to come, but he's not here. I mean, really, where is he?
Well, I'm not certain that Mr. Cooper has to be here today. After we met with him at leadership in the mayor's office, and we discussed a number of items, and these 3 items came up.
But this is on our agenda today for a presentation by him. He is not here.
It's not on our agenda, Dr. Staggers.
Well, at least the agenda I have, he is. And also on the other agenda, I've got a couple different agendas.
Well, I have one that says updates in the airport overlay district, and I was supposed to give that report, Dr. Staggers.
Well, I guess I'm a little concerned when a committee specifically requests this and it doesn't happen.
Was it a committee that requested it?
Yes. Yes, it was the fiscal committee.
When we met with, in the mayor's meeting with Director Cooper and the mayor, he asked if he needed to be here. He said he had nothing to offer. Didn't have any new things to offer because it was being reviewed by all the interested parties, and they were going to be working towards a solution, that they were not enforcing these ordinances anymore. I'm not clear as to whether or not they specifically apply to the new building permits or not, but they were not going to be doing it, and they wanted to come back at a later time when they had more information to give us.
But I guess...
So if there's somebody to be faulted here, it's probably Councilor Litz and myself, because we indicated that we thought that would be okay.
We thought it sounded like a reasonable thing at the time.
Because one of the reasons I wanted him to be here was to ask questions. Not that he might have had anything new to present, but to ask questions. And
Councilor Knudsen.
I would just add, kind of in a compromising fashion here, is that I recall at last week's informational, when I was still chairing our group, that on this topic of the airport overlay district and so forth, that I made it very clear. I was in very close touch with the mayor and his top staff on this issue. They are working very hard on this issue, and I know that I made it very clear last Monday, exactly at this time, that within 2 weeks we would receive a full report and a recommendation. And I'm just a friendly reminder.
And I don't know, the original, there were 2 agendas. There was the original agenda, and then there was an updated agenda. The updated agenda clearly does not have the item on it, and I would just say that if you had reviewed the updated agenda, you would have known, and you could have certainly inquired as to why it had been changed.
what's the time? What's the date on the dated agenda?
there's
July
not.
14th. What's the date on the other agenda I have? July 14th. Now, we're starting to come up with all kinds of different agendas.
I think that this agenda thing was changed earlier in the week. I read that on my emails, Dr. Staggers, and I think it's probably there if you would care to look at it. And I'm sure the city clerk could also update you as to the times that these were changed. We left leadership last Thursday and informed Ms. Owens, and I believe at that time that was when it
But I
changed.
guess I'm very concerned that, when we have a committee making a request, and then the leadership goes and talks to the mayor and then says, well, no, you don't have to come. I guess I'm very concerned about that.
Well, I guess we just thought that there was probably no huge emergency about this, Dr. Staggers, and that if we took care of business later when we had more information about this, it would be more productive use of people's time.
That's what I wanted, information about this. We're not getting it today from the head of the planning department.
Do you have the planning department's phone number? Because I'm certain they answer the phone.
Okay, I'm certain that I had an agenda saying he was going to be here, so that's what I was anticipating today. I even told a reporter that he was going to, we're going to be talking about this today. And he's not here. And now, maybe it is not his fault for not being here, but he should have been here.
Well, that being said, nothing's going to change here. I'd like to move along to the staff report, number 9. We've got our mid-year audit status report. John?
My point would be that is if you do recall the ordinance, there is a provision in there where basically the airport was zoned. I wouldn't recall that portion because I think that needs to remain in place. And I don't know what your guys' opinion of that is, but I'd strongly suggest that you try and leave that portion intact.
Thank you, John. Okay, number 9, mid-year audit status report. Rich Oaksel, the lead internal auditor. Attached items are on Granicus as well as a hard copy on your desk.
Thank you. I have a brief PowerPoint we'll get into here in a moment. And okay, I'm going to do the PowerPoint first, and I'll leave some time at the end of the PowerPoint for some questions you might have. This will take probably about 5 or 6 minutes. It's kind of an overview of what we do as auditors, a little bit of history, and a little bit of kind of where we're at with performance auditing. And then we'll also have just a few minutes to talk about our status report of what projects we've completed this year and what we're working on right now. So you should have 2 hard copies. In front of you, you should have a PowerPoint with the slides, and you should also have the written report of our status for June 30th. A brief history. The Audit Committee was established by ordinance of November 2005. Audit Committee members were appointed February of 2006. We got an audit charter approved by resolution in July of about 2 years ago. And that audit charter is sort of our constitution, sort of our marching orders. And I was appointed in November of that year. Last year we appointed our first staff auditor, and then this year we appointed our second staff auditor. Performance auditing local government, it's been around for about 40 years. It started about 1968 in the United States. The National Association of Local Government Auditors, NALGA, was started 20 years ago. Really started taking off about 1990, and at this point, it's going great guns right now. Most cities above a certain size in those 4 states have an internal audit function: in Florida, Texas, California, and Virginia. And the Association of Local Government Auditors, they dropped the N in their name. They just went with ALGA instead of NALGA. They have over 290 members now, with cities and counties and local government authorities. They're adding new members every year. And just this year, Des Moines, Iowa, and Lawrence, Kansas have created internal audit positions, or city auditor positions. A lot of people, when they hear the word auditor, they think of the IRS. That's typically the reaction we get when we start an audit. People are very fearful. The IRS auditors are basically after tax compliance and recovery. And then we also have our external auditors, our CPA firm that audits our financials, like in our case, Eide Bailey. They attest to the fairness of the financial statements. That's basically what they're doing for us. Now, the internal auditors, what we're doing is a little more broad than that. We're evaluating controls, and we're making recommendations to improve performance. What's in a name? Some cities call it, I think Detroit, they call it their Auditor General. In the federal government, they have an Inspector General in various departments. Sometimes cities call it the City Auditor, Performance Auditor, Internal Auditor. Pretty much it's the same thing. It's just there's some minor differences there. But for the purpose of this presentation, we're talking about the same thing, local government auditors. What's our purpose? The money, taxes we invest in government services is spent efficiently and effectively. We attempt to evaluate controls to ensure that we have accountability of finances, operational effectiveness, compliance with laws, policies, regulations, and that we're safeguarding our assets. We try to independently verify and we perform the role of third-party reporting. In other words, we're basically working on behalf of the citizens. You're the representatives of the citizens. We report to you. We're reporting on the work done for them by the agents, the city administration, and the management. Now, the advice we get as local government auditors is don't create havoc, don't be counting paper clips, don't be gotcha auditing, focusing on the negative exclusively. Instead, try to see that you're increasing citizen confidence, citizen trust, helping improve responsiveness to the citizens, and helping improve the overall performance of the government. Now, this advice comes from an interesting source. In Kansas City, the longtime city auditor recently retired about 2 years ago from his position. He'd been there about 20 years. He decided he would run for mayor, and he was elected mayor of Kansas City. So he's speaking from the perspective of the city auditor and elected official. And what he's telling auditors to do now that he's in the mayor's chair is to speak to real problems, what he calls fat rabbits, the obvious, and also the lurking demons. So what we're trying to do is, for elected officials, we're trying to point out the things that are less obvious but could be an issue, and also the fat rabbits. So that was his advice. And he also says, be relevant and be brief. So I'll attempt to do that at all times. The city is now attempting to install a performance measurement system. We're working with the ICMA to develop that. We're sort of in the first year of that. Internal auditors are often asked to be a part of that in some fashion, and that particular website gives 5 different roles for internal auditors and performance measure. So what are we doing this year with performance measure? We're assisting management by making sure that they have a good system of tracking and reporting performance measures in place. So as we get this ball rolling, that we want to make sure that we have a good system in place. Performance auditing. According to our audit charter, which I mentioned before, that was passed by resolutions, that's sort of our marching orders. We're to determine if risks are being identified and managed. In other words, do we have controls in place to identify risk and manage those? Is our financial information, our operating information, is it timely? Is it accurate? Is it reliable? Our programs, plans, and objectives achieved, our resources acquired economically, used efficiently, and adequately protected. The kind of things that we evaluate departments and programs against are best practices, best business practices, various risk and control models, or what does the law say? What's the policy? What are the regulations? So we look at all of those type of things as appropriate to the audit. When we're looking at auditing performance, we're looking at things like historical trends or baselines. We look at the program requirements or the intent. In other words, what was the intent of, say, the City Council when they implemented this? What are the customer expectations? What are the industry standards? And maybe if you can do some benchmarking within your organization, you might look at that. Now, we don't make policy. We're not supposed to. We're supposed to evaluate that. We don't make decisions. But we do critique that. But nobody likes the critic. Nobody likes the Monday morning quarterback. So as auditors, what are we seeking to do? Well, we're required by professional auditing standards to be fair and balanced in what we do. In other words, we want to be professional. We want to be courteous. We want to listen to management's point of view. We try to focus on the bigger issue if possible. We try to point out the good and that which needs improvement and try and give a fair and balanced report. How do we come up with our work plan? We come up with an annual work plan. We present that to you either in December or January and get that approved by the City Council. How do we come up with these projects? Try to get the most bang for the buck. We can't audit everything every year. We don't have the resources to do that. It wouldn't be very efficient with our time. So we look at kind of a risk vulnerability assessment, and that just means where are you spending your money? Where is the public interest? You have a history of problems in a certain area, and how long has it been since your last audit? We kind of look at kind of a mix of those type of things. But we still need to look at these kind of audits and projects. Cost recovery audits. A lot of times elected officials are very interested in that. So we're starting to do construction auditing, revenue auditing. Are we getting all the money that we're supposed to be getting for various contracts and whatnot? And also something we call integrity services. That means anti-fraud procedures, maintaining a waste, fraud, and abuse hotline, cash handling audits, that sort of thing. And by doing these sort of things, these sort of audits, we're telling the public that somebody is paying attention to that sort of thing. As auditors, we're supposed to maintain professionalism, and according to the audit charter, we're supposed to comply with the standards for the practice of internal auditing. Those are international standards. We're supposed to keep up with our continuing ed. We actively participate in the Sioux Falls chapter of the Institute of Internal Auditors, and we also actively participate in the Association of Local Government Auditors. And that helps us to stay in touch with what other auditors are doing, what's working for them. If we have questions, we can email other auditors in other cities and ask questions. They can email us and say, can you help us with this sort of audit? It's been very, very beneficial for us. Okay, who audits the auditors? The short answer is other local government auditors. To meet the professional standards, we're supposed to have a peer review about every 5 years. In other words, auditors from another city that have passed the peer review would come and audit us for about a 3-day period and just to see that we're in compliance with professional standards. What's the value of internal audit? Why do you have us? One thing that's in our internal audit charter, that first bullet, we're to be a catalyst for positive change. We want to increase your comfort level as elected officials that things are working the way they're supposed to, and we want to increase the citizens' trust in government. And this slide also came from Mark Funkhauser. He's the mayor of Kansas City. He was the former city auditor, now the mayor. He has what he calls the Bill Russell criteria. Bill Russell was a famous Hall of Fame basketball player for the Boston Celtics. He helped his team win 11 championships in 13 years. Bill Russell criteria is your team winning. Is your team, the city government, winning in the eyes of the citizens? Is the city moving towards open, accountable, performance-driven government? Now, you have any questions or comments? I'd be happy to answer those at this time.
Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Rich. In your estimation, in the time that we've had the internal audit function, what do you think are the 3 success stories that you could point to?
I would say we're developing good working relationships with directors and managers. It's very adversarial when we started. I think we're overcoming that. I think we've increased the level of awareness among managers. I know that a lot of people are looking at their policies and procedures, and sometimes they had policies and procedures. It was all in between somebody's ears. In other words, they knew what they did, but they hadn't written them down yet. And I think they were also looking at what they were doing and just say, can we do this better? I know I've talked to Gene Roanhorst and his staff, Tom Huber in finance. I know they've been reviewing what they do, looking at things like, is this risk, are we controlling this risk appropriately? Are these duties separated appropriately? So I think we're having that effect already, that people are proactively looking at what they do. And if that's the effect we have, that's fine with us, if we can just have continuous improvement like that. And right now, today, we're having a seminar on construction auditing. We're working with the project managers in the engineering department, some finance people, and our internal audit staff. We're getting training on what we need to look at as we do a lot of the construction contracts. Where are the areas that we might have a cost overrun? How do we manage our change orders? Are they necessary? So I think we're having we're getting a partnership there that, your engineers, you're looking at this stuff. Auditors, you're looking at this. Finance, you need to look at this. You need to work as a team. You need to control your costs. So I think that's been very beneficial. And I think we're just raising the awareness of just doing the right thing. I think we're just having that effect. So I hope we're having a positive effect. I think we are. And we're just getting going. Last year, we're sort of in our baby steps. Now we're in our toddler stage, and I think within 3 or 4 years, we'll be where we want to be. So that's my response.
Any other questions of Rich? Any other questions of Rich? Rich, do you have part 2, your internal, your half your status report that you're going to go into next? Is that?
Well, I was just going to address there's a 3-page report here. It's just our formal status report of we have 5 projects completed this year. We have 2 that we're just about ready to start writing the report. One is on the water distribution system, and one is on property taxes. We should probably have those out next month, I think. We have about 15 projects for the year. I expect we'll complete, I think we'll be completed on time.
Very good. Any other questions of Rich while he's here? And Rich, Councilor Costello and myself would like to speak to you briefly after
Yes,
this meeting.
I thought you might want to. So.
Okay, appreciate you.
About a special project request?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next up is executive session. There's none scheduled. So is there any other business for the Councilor Knudsen?
May I go back to just open discussion just for a couple of quick
Yes,
items?
absolutely.
Is one, just a reminder that I'm continuing to work on the Coliseum Committee with Commissioner Tweed and Mary Dean Janklow and Linda Munson and so forth, and we are working very hard now on completing the exterior of the Coliseum, and you all know that we use our beautiful historic Coliseum for our multicultural center, and you also all know that we just recently approved Councilor Anderson to that advisory board because the mayor requested that he serve there, which is a wonderful choice. But anyway, saying that, I attended a meeting end of last week again on the Coliseum exterior project, and we are using some inmates from the penitentiary to do tuck pointing and so forth, and we are actually making great progress. And it's been a wonderful county-city partnership, as usual, and the county is appropriating lots and lots of money for this project, and I am very hopeful that you will be able to support a facade easement program in the near future on that building. And then, with all of that having been said, I want to say that on August 18th, as opposed to August 11th, that some of our team would like to come before you just for a few minutes and give you an update on that project. So I have requested that update with our chair and vice chair. And
Dr. Staggers.
Yeah, Dee, I have a question about the facade easement program. I think when we signed the contract with the county, they were going to take care exclusively the physical building, and then we would take care of the operational expenses. And so to me, I guess I'm concerned now that we want to have city money to help take care of the external part of the building, when that is the responsibility of the county.
And I very much respect your thoughts on that, Councilor Staggers, and I do recall for the interior, which we worked on a few years ago, thanks to about $2 million of state money, thanks to then Governor Bill Janklow, that was the arrangement at that time for the interior of the building at least. But again, and we have clearly been looking for some private money also, and recently received $10,000 from city to help us with our exterior project. And also we have also received some money from the Deadwood Preservation folks and the DAR, the Daughters of the American Revolution group. And so we are not just looking for government money, and I'm sure welcome more on conversation on this topic later as we get closer to voting on facade easement program. But I just kind of wanted to give you a heads up on that. And then and one other important topic, and I appreciate the fact that Judy Boozman, our Director of the Health Department, is here to add or answer any of your questions on this. And would you please know that when the Public Services Committee was, we've been working hard for over a half a year on this child care ordinance proposal that we are bringing forward to you tonight, but we just kind of forgot to say that we prefer, some of us prefer, probably all of us, but we just hadn't talked about it at that time, that it go into effect at the beginning of the year, January 1st, 2009, for good record-keeping purposes, because in-home child care centers need to turn in a master list of the children that they are caring for and so forth. And so that is one amendment I will be making this evening, and I believe that Councilor Brown will be seconding that motion. And then you all have been lobbied rather hard this afternoon in a very constructive fashion from people in our community who care a great deal about children. And they, some of those folks are very supportive of the proposal that we have before us tonight to vote on. And then there are others that would like to encourage us to just raise the bar a little bit more and use the same staff-child ratio that the state uses right now, as opposed to being lower than what the state uses. But again, remember that the state ratio that is in effect, which I think is minimal, is nonetheless a voluntary one. It's like, and you don't have to be state registered. And as Councilor Staggers has reminded us before at committee meetings, which I really agree with, and I agree with many things he said on this topic, is that just saying you're city registered or state registered doesn't mean that you are necessarily, the best thing going on, but still it's at least a step in the right direction. So anyway, after lots and lots and lots of thought today and before today too, I just want to tell you that I'm going to be proposing a second amendment tonight to that proposal. I'm going to support what our committee has decided to go forward with for 2000, for now, but then effective 2010, I'm going to ask you to seriously consider raising the ratio or to mirror the state ratio to the age of, instead of right now, it's going to be, that you need to have no more than 4 children, 18 months and younger. If you are caring for them yourself in an in-home daycare situation, I am going to ask you to mirror the state's minimal regulation requirement and go to 24 months or 2 years effective January 1st, 2010. And I actually think that is a move in the right direction and a good compromise for all the people who have been contacting us today. So just wanted to give you that thought, and I have not found a second on that motion yet, but I haven't had a chance to either. So I welcome anyone who would want to help me on that. Thank you.
Costello.
We had all gotten an email from somebody who had indicated or was concerned on how special needs children fit into the program, and obviously having higher needs, and we've got this potential amendment that would just say that, in essence, if there are special needs children, the staffing would have to be more, the number of children would have to be less. Where, as a committee, where has that come up, or where's the state on that?
Director Boozman will be able to help you more than I can on that. I know that actually was not discussed at our committee level. We have received that email very recently from a very credible person, and it's a very good thought. It's just something that was not discussed at our committee level. It's just that you try to remember every single detail, and we really did not discuss that. But I think Director Boozman might have some helpful thoughts for you on that topic.
This did, as you mentioned, did come up from an individual after our Public Services Committee had discontinued its work, and we were in the process of moving to bringing this to the council. And as we looked at that and talking with people who work with children with special needs, they can be so different, because you could have somebody that is in a wheelchair, confined, has no movement. You can have somebody with minimal special needs. So the provision would have to be adjusted individually as you looked at it. And many times providers that take special needs children, that's all they do take is special needs children. So in looking at a protection, in a sense, to decrease risk, and I think that's what we're looking at as we even look at the change in supervision requirements, that we're looking at risk. And so as we look at saying that these kind of providers, and that's one of the things is that you would start to say that provider is going to have to look at how would you plan individually with the children that you have and to meet those needs. Because we couldn't come up with a way to put into ordinance a way to say for every combination of children. So that's why it would have to be individually planned. So that would be the discussion.
Does the state address special needs in their ordinance?
I didn't see it in their ordinance. I didn't review every element. Again, talking to folks and looking at the requirement here, looking at some and the city attorney's office has briefly reviewed it at this point in time, but just making sure we're recognizing that we do have to adjust for special needs was more the intent in this.
Dr. Staggers?
Yes. Judy, just taking a look at some of the information that we have about the ordinance, proposed ordinance tonight, I do remember this. I'm just going to read it here. Knudsen made a motion to amend her initial motion to include, this is from the committee. Knudsen made a motion to amend her initial motion to include verbiage that would stipulate that parents are notified when providers are in noncompliance after 30 days, or if the daycare is going to close. And Anderson Jr. seconded it. And then we had the roll call. I guess I didn't see that in the ordinance.
I guess I haven't reviewed the minutes for that, but after that, I asked that that be administrative policy, because as you put it into a timing factor, it starts to be something you may adjust on a year-to-year basis as to when you notify clients. And
No, wait, how come?
when I asked, and Councilman Anderson and I did talk about that at the time. So
No, I guess I'm getting a little concerned here when we have
I asked
committees.
that at the committee meeting, though. I asked it at your committee meeting, and there was, I believe that there was people told me yes at the time, so I left that meeting.
I never said yes at all, and I was looking for it in this proposed ordinance, and so therefore I was greatly surprised when I didn't see it. But I didn't know this was going to be an administrative thing.
I believe I asked that committee right after the vote, and believe that people said yes, that would work. So if that's not the intent, I'm fine with writing it into ordinance. I'd just like then to be able to influence for a procedural process when that happens, because it does make a lot of difference as to the process and the work of staff on the way it's written.
Because I do remember the motion. I don't remember anything in the motion about administrative. And how can we say after a motion, well, we're going to make it administrative? I mean, to me, we were amending the proposed ordinance.
Councilor Knudsen?
Thank you for that question, Councilor Staggers. I don't remember exactly in what order everyone said everything, but I remember that we were talking about that whole topic until the very end of the meeting, until we ran out of time. And I'm personally very comfortable with it being handled at an administrative level. I probably just wasn't smart enough to think about it when I made my first motion. But anyway, if in fact you do feel as strongly as I think you do, or as you're indicating you do right now on that, is that obviously we could, you could propose an amendment this evening on that, and I would seriously consider seconding that.
If I could comment a minute.
Councilor Anderson?
On this one, Dr. Staggers, I'm going to agree with you, because after reading the proposed amendment, I did contact Director Boozman, and we discussed that over the phone also. So I did also have that concern that it wasn't in the ordinance itself. So if that's something that you want to bring up tonight, I would gladly second that.
Okay, thank you.
Can I make a comment? I just would comment that we've already taken this back. My staff is excited to be able to think of doing that, because one of the issues they deal with in that December and January time period is the people who are slow to get their renewals in. And I think we did have significant discussion. There was no intent on my part to slight the council on actions. So, including it, I would just like to have some ability to put that into effect, so that as policies, procedures, or the way we do our registrations change, that we just put that in so that it allows us some of that administrative ability to make changes in the way we mail out, do it online, or however we do those registrations, so that we don't have to come to the council every time, unless you want it. I mean, I don't have no problem coming to the council either. So,
Well, maybe there's some way we can word that within the ordinance to, state that it's going to be some type of administrative. Maybe after this, we can sit down with Dr. Staggers or something and come up with something that would be agreeable.
Very good, very good. Councilor Knudsen?
I promise this is my last thought for today, not on the child care proposal, but thank you for your patience with me always, is that I also wanted to tell you in the very near future I'm going to be bringing forward an ordinance proposal for you to seriously consider to line up our current alcohol licenses with what's on the books now at the state level. And Don South has called me a couple times recently on this topic. And again, it's, as you well know, the South Dakota legislature passed a bill last year to allow people who are in the wine business locally to be able to sell their products locally. And so I'm talking about a few particular special summer festivals and September festivals and so forth. And actually, one of our attorneys for our city, Gary Colwell, is working on this issue because he had started working on this closely before he changed positions. And so would you just know that will be coming forward from me also in the very near future.
Thank you for that, Councilor Knudsen. Just a comment here, this evening or this afternoon, we did take in some information from a citizen, and a while back, Dr. Staggers commented to me that all we get at the Informational is information from staff, and I agree that it's not entirely fair. That being said, I would like this council to know that it is my intent from time to time to take input in from citizens. But I'd like to qualify that, and I would say that the citizen, I would like them to be uniquely qualified in the situation that they're talking about in some fashion, and to have contacted the council on an ongoing thing. And the fact that Mr. Schmidt is on the committee that is going to be reviewing this prompted me to allow him to speak down here to us today. And like I said, I'm not interested in people walking in off the street and giving us a rant or making this a political thing. They'll have their 5 minutes at the council meeting to do that. But I felt Mr. Schmidt was uniquely qualified to speak to us tonight, and I wanted you to have that information. And it is my intention, unless Justice Amundsen stops me somehow, he finds it in the canons or the charter somehow that I can't do that, it is my intention to provide us with quality information from citizens from time to time. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Okay, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
I so move. Knudsen.
Knudsen moves. Second.
Second, Jameson.
Jameson seconds. We stand adjourned.